Welcome to Java EE6 webinar series. Today we are going to cover JAXRS 1.1. By the way, it is assumed that you have some understanding on JAXRS. In fact, we cover JAXRS in detail in another course, a web services course. So let me actually address some of the topics that we cover in this web services programming. And under this web services programming, we cover REST. So REST overview and JAXRS Basics 1, JAXRS Basics 2, and also WADA, Web Application Description Language. So let me actually address some of the topics that are covered in JAXRS Basics 1. So here we cover, here we basically build very simple hello world RESTful application, and then we cover path param, query param, form param, header param, and matrix param, and then we also cover produces and consumes, and then response entity providers and CRUD operations. So here we are actually using REST for performing CRUD-based operations, create, read, and update and delete. So that is the JAXRS-1. JAXRS-2, we cover URL builder, URI info, and context annotation, and content negotiation, exception handling, also security. I think one of the questions from Raul was in fact security. So here the exercise is using Tomcat users.xml file to add users and roles, and you can actually do the same thing for Glassfish. Glassfish is just a little bit more complicated because the user that you have, abstract user and abstract role that you have to be mapped in Glassfish, the principals and group information. In Tomcat is somewhat same thing, so it's a bit easier using Tomcat for this exercise. So we here add users and roles to Tomcat, and then we actually add security constraints. So as you can see, the security constraint is the same for typical web applications. So in fact, if you think about it, JAX-RS application is a web application. So the same security schemes that you can use for typical web application can be used with JAX-RS as well. Okay, so that is the and then build RESTful web services from a database table, and also actually working with some internet RESTful web services, for example, like a Google Map. So these are the things that I recommend you to take a look. Again, today we are going to actually cover JAXRS 1.1, which are extra features that are introduced as part of the Java EE6. Okay, so again, I assume you have some knowledge on JAXRS. All right, JAXRS 1.1. All right, so JAXRS 1.0 was introduced in 2008. It basically provides POJA annotation-based RESTful services. And JAXRS 1.1 is part of the Java EE6. And a couple of interesting features that are introduced in 1.1 is introduction of application class, and then EJB support. Now you can have EJB to support RESTful request. All right, so let's talk about JAXRS 1.1 web services. So when you use JAXRS, the application is a unit of deployment. So this is not that much different from what you expect. So all the files that make up the applications are packaged together and deployed into some form of container that supports HTTP services. So basically what he's saying is that JAXRS application is a web application. Now, JAXRS application is made of application subclass and root resources and providers. So these are the things that we covered in other, JAXRS, the Basics 1 and Basics 2. And application subclass is just something that was introduced in JAXRS 1.1. So we are going to focus on application subclass. In terms of configuration, you can have you can actually configure the JAXRS in two different ways. One way of doing is using Jersey servlet in web.xml file. So in fact, this is the way that you configure JAXRS support in your web application by changing, by adding the built-in Jersey servlet in your web.xml file. Okay, so this is the built-in Georgie servlet container that actually performs the role of the controller. And then you have a servlet mapping. Okay, so this is actually one way, and this is still supported. Okay, uh, the second way of configuring JAX-RS in your application is using application subclass. Okay, so this is the way that you can actually configure JAX-RS if you're not using application subclass. Again, this application subclass concept was introduced in JAX-RS 1.1. So that is what we're going to talk about now. So application subclass, basically this application class is from Georgie implementation, and basically you are going to create a subclass of it. Okay, so the subclass extends this application class. So by having this subclass that extends the application, you are basically indicating that your application now supports JAX-RS. And you can also specify application path, and this is the URI. Okay, so this is the URI. So if you actually take a look at the this servlet, the Georgie servlet configuration, this URI pattern. Okay, this is a base URI, right? And this base URI can be specified using application path annotation. So this application path annotation can be used only with my application, which is application subclass, meaning this application path annotation can be used only with application subclass. Okay, so by having a class that extends the application class, basically all root resources, classes, and providers are packaged in the application subclass, and they are considered as JAX-RS application. You can pick and choose, the subset of these package classes by overriding get classes method. So one of the method of application class is get classes, the method, and you can actually selectively choose certain root class, the root resource classes by overriding get classes. If you do not override, just like what we do here, that means every root resources and providers will be actually available in your application. All right, so we are going to actually do exercise 2. So here what we are going to do is we are going to build JAX-RS application using the servlet configuration in web.xml file. And then we are going to change that code to use application and application path annotation. Okay, so we are going to run this application first. So it works exactly the same. So one is using, for example, in this case, if you take a look at the web.xml file, we configured the Georgie servlet container servlet in web.xml file, and this is the base URI. Okay, so let's run this application. Let's maybe install. And then run it on the server. Okay, so this is what you get. So you can actually have a list all messages, which what we have over here. And you can actually give the message ID. Message ID, we have message ID 0 and 1, 2, right? So if I click this one, so you get message. So, we got the message like this, okay? And we can delete the message and we can add a message, new message, and add message. Okay, list all message, then we have a new message that has been added. Okay, so this is a very simple message board application that is written in JAX-RS application in the form of JAX-RS application. So let's take a look at the code. So I'm going to use the lab documentation. Okay, so this is what we just have done. So you can see the URL actually reflects the, in this case, to actually get the detailed contents of the particular message, then all you have to do is /messages and /1, and that URL will be considered as the URL request. I mean the JAX-RS request, getting the information about the message 1. Okay. All right. So as I have shown you in here, basically we configured JAX-RS servlet in web.xml file. And then we have index.xhtml facelet. Basically, it's using the JavaScript code, and in this JavaScript code, we actually perform AJAX operation using XML HTTP request. Okay, so this is actually sending HTTP GET, and this is a URL. Okay, and this is index. Right, so that's not really the focus of this code. And this is the EJB bean. So this is EJB bean. So when the root path is used, meaning basically what you're saying is this, okay, and we don't have anything when there is a root. This resource. So this is an example of sub-resource. So this is the list. Yes, so it's a slash and messages, and this is actually giving a list, and it's basically returning message board resource bean. Okay, so this is an example of sub-resource. Again, we cover the concept of sub-resource in JAX-RS Basics 1 presentation and hands-on lab. So I'm going to just move on. So if you take a look at this sub-resource, that's the one that contains the method that has this get, post, and it does have its own path. So it's basically sending the detailed information about particular message, and so this is for delete, okay, and this is for adding a message, and this is for getting the list of the messages. Okay, all right. So now, again, the focus of this exercise is to show that typical, well, traditional way of actually configuring JAX-RS is actually adding Jersey servlet. Jersey, by the way, Jersey is the code name of the implementation that comes with the Metro, which is actually part of the Java EE, the Glassfish. Okay. Now we are going to actually run the second application, which is application path. It works exactly the same, okay? But this time, what we have done is we are going to use the application subclass instead of web.xml file. So if you take a look at the web.xml file here, we actually comment out, okay? So we comment out the servlet mapping. So this is actually removed, okay? So you don't see any configuration of the Jersey servlet here in web.xml file. Instead, what you are seeing is the application subclass, okay? So we have this my application subclass, and by having a class that extends this application class, by the way, if you take a look at the Java documentation of application, it basically says defines the component of JAX-RS application and supplies additional metadata. And JAX-RS application implementation supplies a concrete subclass of abstract class. And yeah, so this one, basically doesn't tell you that much, but basically what it means is that if you happen to have an application that contains this application class, okay, so subclass, that means all the root resources classes and providers are included in your application, so they are deployed as a JAX-RS resource, okay. And in order to specify the base URI, you're going to use the application path, okay. So in this case, you're using app. Okay, it's the same URI that we have used in previous application. Okay, so now if I run this application, it works exactly the same. We just use the application subclass for JAX-RS configuration. That's all. So let's install it and then run it. Okay, so it works exactly the same, but you can see the context of this application is application path. Okay, so we have a list of messages, message ID, and we can delete, and we can add a new message 2, add message, and if you list all message, then we got all the list of the messages. Okay, so work exactly the same, but this time you're using application subclass as a way of configuring JAX-RS into your web application. Okay, so that is exercise 2. All right, this application example, the application that we just saw is using EJB as a web services. So you already have seen the example of it. Okay, so now in JAX-RS, EJB can be the JAX-RS resource. Okay, so the only thing you have to do is basically again adding your JAX-RS annotation, like a path is like specifying root resource. Okay, and then you can have the method to have get produces, the typical path param. So anything that you can do with the project class with the JAX-RS, like a get annotation, produces annotation, add consumes